let's go get started with introductions. I'm Dana Trey with SCTA RCPA, and I'll pass it to my left.
Chris Barney, SCTA RCPA.
Emily Beth Smart.
Kathleen Sullivan, Marin Transit.
Beth Britt, SCTA RCPA.
Matthew Wilcox, Santa Rosa City Bus.
David Davenport, Golden Gate Bridge Highway and Transportation District.
Jared Hall, Petaluma Transit.
All right, and on the screen.
Ross Clendon, SCTA, RCPA.
Morning, Dave Ribbert, SCTA RCPA.
Adam Garcia, SCTA RCPA.
Margot Cañas, SCTA.
Thanks, everyone. Yes.
Is on consumer. That's all.
Yes, thank you. For some reason today I could see the names, but some days I can't.
Yeah. It's
All right, so I don't see any public for public comment. So we'll just move on to approval of the meeting notes from October. Does anybody have any comments or corrections?
Wasn't here last month, so I have all faith in what you wrote.
Same.
Motion approval.
Yeah, we're all abstaining.
Okay, we have one motion. Does anybody want to second it? I could bring it back next month. All right, let's bring it back next month. Thanks, Drew. All right, next we have a few items related to the comprehensive transportation plan. And Chris is gonna talk through those.
Yeah, the first item, and then I think Adam's gonna give an update on the progress report, and then I'll give an update on what we're hearing from outreach and engagement so far. So first item, I think, is the CTP project list update. So just a few things here. So I know there are a few issues with the update spreadsheets that were sent out. So hopefully we've been able to work through those.
The Excel lesson, I appreciate it.
You're
No,
welcome.
just
So
put this in line.
yeah, I apologize for any of those issues, but trying to wrap that up. So if you're able to get those back within the next week or so, we'll be entering those in, getting those changes done. So please reach out if you're having any trouble or even want to, share a screen and work through some of that. We can definitely do that. So, so with that, we're also taking applications for new CTP projects at this time as well. So we actually have a Google form available to add new projects. Keeping in mind that this CTP is a financially unconstrained project list. So looking out to the year 2050. So there's an opportunity to, add kind of big ideas in here. But, the key bits of information for new projects include, the project sponsor, who the primary contact is, a brief project name and description, where it's located. If you have a project map or design, that would be helpful. So we can go ahead and get that represented well in our tools. Identifying the project type. So on the transit side, we have non-capital and capital categories in addition to ITS, new technologies, TDM, and emissions reduction technologies, which may be applicable. And then year of construction, year of implementation. So if you're looking at the next 10 years, please be as specific as possible. If it's a longer term project, something more of a rough estimate is definitely okay. And then the estimated cost calculated in year of expenditure in millions of dollars. So those are the basics for the new project applications. So in the agenda, there's a link to the Google form. If you're having trouble finding that, let me know, or having issues with that, let me know as well. So a few agencies have successfully used that so far, and we did some testing on it, but please let me know if you're having trouble with that form. So that's the update on the CTP project list, unless there are any questions.
How are you representing mascots in the CTP? Or have you thought about it?
That's a good question. We haven't represented it specifically, so we're still kind of working through at the SCTA RCPA side on, projects we may be sponsoring. So we want to try and get projects in the CTP, those new project submissions, by December.
Mhm.
So I don't know if we'll have any specific recommendations yet to get into this CTP. We do have kind of a broad transit integration project idea that we have from the last CTP we could carry over. So, but the mascots results are supposed to be out next spring, right?
Final.
Final.
But we know what we're thinking about, and I don't know, I do think, so the CTP feeds into the RTP.
Mhm.
We did not get mascots into this RTP,
Right.
but we definitely have talked to MTC and have tried to
Yeah.
twist their arm into doing it, and they won't.
Okay.
But I think setting up the Marin and Sonoma CTPs, because you likely won't update this again before the next RTP.
Right.
And so this is reminding me, I should also talk to Derek, because they're in the final stages of their CTP.
They're ahead
But
of
if
us.
mascots could just literally like the words with some description that I can help you come up with,
Mhm.
I think it would be really good as a placeholder
Yeah.
to just put it in there.
Yeah.
And even if you need it by December, maybe then you're not gonna adopt the document before April.
No. End of next
And
year.
so then we could revise it, but then at least it's in there, and then we can finalize the description next summer or something, once we actually. And maybe it would break into a couple projects or be mascots A, B, and C or something like that, but I think starting to have a placeholder would be great.
Yeah, we can have mascots implementation and kind of have a vague description and add more
Mhm.
Yeah,
later.
or possibly it's kind of expanding on that transit integration project that's in
Yeah.
there and adding some mascots, details and options in there, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
we'll take a close look at that.
Okay, and we can compare to what, if there's increased smart frequency, maybe you already have that in there. So there might be projects that the operators individually already have put in there that basically align with the direction we're going. But, or that align with the SCTA recommendations from transit integration, but.
And we can kind of parse some of that out. We're going to be doing performance assessment next spring.
Yeah.
So we have to enter that stuff into our models and tools. So if they're overlapping things, we can kind of catch it there as we're going into that
Okay,
phase.
yeah,
as well.
great.
Cool.
I wanted to ask about sea level rise and resilience projects. Are
Yeah.
those part of this? Or I guess I'm asking it that way because when I was in the Plan Bay area meeting recently, I asked about that and learned that there's a separate process for those, okay? This resilience project list.
Yeah.
And I don't really understand how we get projects onto this resilience project list. Do you understand that?
There's a separate process, and it's a financially unconstrained list.
Right.
So it's kind of a different set of rules going into that.
Mhm.
I can investigate that a little bit more. We generally don't include those types of projects unless they're specifically transportation in the CTP.
Mhm.
I
I mean, for smart, it would be transportation, you
Yeah,
know?
let me get more.
I'm gonna
information.
submit it in the
Okay.
form, but I would love any insight you have on how we get into the Plan Bay area for resilience.
Yeah. I'll check in with Michael
Okay.
Grimrod. He's the lead on that, and
Okay,
yeah.
our needs are mainly in Marin, but the
Yeah.
process is pretty opaque to me. so.
There's capital projects Smart has in mind along those. terms.
Yeah, we need to raise the tracks in a bunch of places, in the winter when it floods. Currently, much
Right.
less with sea level rise, so.
Yeah,
And,
those-
and in Petaluma, and we're part of a local study led by the think it's Las Colinas Water District that they're doing on sea level rise. And that's also they have a number of like mitigations related to smart raising the tracks in Petaluma. So that would probably be relevant to this.
Yeah, let's definitely get some sort of project in
Yeah, yeah,
and I'll get more information from MTC.
okay, thanks.
Yep. Thank you everyone for your support on that. And please reach out if you have any questions or if the tools are giving you problems. So next up, we have Adam, who's going to give the full progress report presentation. So last month, he actually walked through just the transit metrics. So we have a lot more information to share beyond transit, and he's updated and finalized a few of the transit metrics as well. So Dana, if it's okay,
Yeah,
turn things over
great.
to Adam.
Go ahead, Adam.
All right, thank you and good morning, everyone. And thank you also for your comments last month on the transit use graphics. Hopefully we were able to address some of your concerns. But yeah, would love to get your continued feedback, so thank you. So we're looking at 4 broad categories, just trying to understand how well is our transportation system performing for us in terms of system condition and safety, how efficient is it to move around, transit use and active transportation, and then equity and the environment. So we have just a few simple measures that we can look from year to year, either for the best data that we have in a current snapshot or ideally over the course of this study, which in some cases goes back to most cases about 2017 to 2022 or 2023. So through the pandemic. All right. So first one, system condition safety. We're looking at the pavement condition index, PCI, collision rates for pedestrians, bicyclists, and then transit vehicle revenue hours. So overall, across Sonoma County, we see that there's been a slow, steady progress as more funding has been available for a lot of these road improvements and street rehabs. The PCI has continued to incrementally go up. This is a 3-year average. And if we want to dive into any of the particular jurisdictions, we can see most cities have well, a few different patterns. Some have increased, some have stayed steady, and just maybe about 2 of them have declined in their PCI. The data that's there, the numbers, is for the most recent year, for the 3-year average for 2023. For the per capita crashes for bicyclists and pedestrians, we're looking at the number of crashes per 10,000 people across the county. And to some degree, I'm sure the COVID pandemic has had an impact on our driving, obviously. So the number of crashes has also declined, but I think we can also give a pat on our backs. We'll look down the line in the presentation, just with a lot of the road improvements we've been making in the county have been specifically trying to address this with Vision Zero. So the number of bicycle facilities has also increased across the county as well, which we'll see shortly. This is an unfortunately highly pixelated map. I'm not sure why that's doing that much, but you can see the general theme is where there's number of crash density are the more yellow areas. We see those focused in kind of downtown areas, but also in some unincorporated pockets in Guerneville and the Sonoma Valley as well. In terms of transit vehicle revenue hours, we're looking at these are a subset of the total data available for Golden Gate Transit. It's focusing just on those routes that serve Sonoma County. And from this, we see since FY18 through most recent data, there's been that obvious decline that we'll see across all of these charts as it relates to transit from the COVID pandemic, where the number of hours has decreased, but we can see that there's been that recovery in the last few years. Just to take a quick step back to try to maybe address some of your feedback also from the last meeting, this is a chart called a ribbon chart. And so it gives you the highest or greatest values by quantity at the top and the lowest or fewest number of values at the bottom. So those relationships change over year, so that in that way you can kind of see a top to bottom scale and how the transit agencies have changed in relation to each other over the years.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Okay. So why are vehicle revenue hours being used as a measure for system condition and safety?
Let's see, this was used, I think, kind of for the system condition, I guess, just as a way to say what's the condition in terms of the actual number of hours that the transit vehicles are available. In kind of most simplest terms. So Chris, if you have any other thoughts on that as well. I think this was one we carried over from past CTPs as well for this category.
Yeah, the reason we included this in the last CTP is kind of a supply measure. So the amount of availability of transit service out there. So that was the justification
So
before.
condition, I mean, we all measure system condition, right? In terms of like state of good repair,
Right.
but that means something totally different to us than this. So this is transit availability.
So in terms, because we always track, like anything safety related, we track in terms of revenue miles, not hours.
That's another.
Yeah, I think that category, system condition and safety, like maybe apply to different types of projects and modes. And, you know, I think it's being carried over from that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you were evaluating the state of transit in Sonoma County, that would be a good thing to look at. You would look at fleet age, right? State of the buses, right? Spare ratio, all sorts of other things.
I guess it just depends on how the
We-
metric's actually being used.
Yeah.
So in the last CDP, we did do that. And I remember there was a discussion at the T-TAC about that.
Mhm.
And, you know, the preference was not to look at the physical capital condition, but look at like this type of measure. So, but maybe we call it something different, right? Versus condition, we call it transit supply or a transit availability or something like that. And that, you know,
Because I just think it generally like there's operating and there's capital,
Yeah.
and they're two very different buckets, right?
And it could be that showing hours as a proxy of availability is an interesting thing, but doesn't really fit under system condition and safety. That's maybe.
Can you just remove the top part and just delete system condition and safety?
I'm guessing you're that you're grouping things under.
yeah, they fit under different categories, so. Is there an interest in reporting out on capital, you know, the physical condition of your facilities and buses and stuff like that? We've done that in the past, and there was, you know, when we talked about it before, we kind of landed on, you know, that's not that interesting or useful to report on, so.
I mean, we report on it. We find it interesting. I
Yeah,
guess it's
yeah.
a question if you do and you think the county audience does. We always track our state of good repair and it's something we
Yeah.
report on regularly. So the data's there.
I mean, I guess if this is part of the CTP, right? And we're submitting CTP project lists.
Yeah.
And if we're looking for capital replacement or state of good repair funds,
Yeah.
then there should be maybe some nexus to the state of the system. I don't know if there was a concern last time about broadcasting poor state of repair. I don't know.
I think that we were previously using it as a performance metric, right? And I think the feedback was that shouldn't be the only performance metric, right? Like
That's true.
it's there's a capital piece.
Yeah.
but there's also the operations piece and the like the supply side, right? So I think that's what this is trying to capture in terms of, measures for performance. So it sounds to me like that, maybe keeping both would have a tie to projects that are submitted.
I mean, I think it's relevant data because it paints the picture of old fleet aging even more, less able every day to provide the service on the street, and then the big capital need to replace the fleets of our respective agencies to bring them up to par. So to me, that's helpful data and a helpful narrative to have included in Emily's points.
If you're trying to measure system condition and safety, but if this is, I don't know what else is in here, but if this is the only transit metric,
Mhm.
right, then we don't want it switched over to system condition. You're right. We need something more general. So maybe it's just in the labeling or something.
Yeah, and we can grab the average age of stuff from the NTD, right? Like,
Yeah.
So, that's easy for us to do and definitely include in the CTP and, maybe it's a future discussion about future, how we look at that, how things may change in the future sometime early next year. But, yeah, if there's a desire to report on that, I think we definitely should.
Yeah, we can try to pull that data and yeah, maybe bring it back next T-TAC. See if it's worth bringing into the full CTP. But yeah, great discussion. Thank you. Let's see. So moving on, in terms of travel efficiency, we're looking at average trip length and then travel delay. So the average trip length is kind of is what you'd expect based off geography. Cloverdale to reach more of their daily needs have to drive further, being isolated in North County, whereas other places that might have resources more in greater proximity, such as Cotati, Santa Rosa, Sebastopol, Sonoma, are all have a lower average trip length, indicating there might be more of a mix of land uses, giving the shorter trip length overall for those travelers.
And I'm guessing this is in minutes, right?
Yeah, that would be in minutes.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, this is in miles.
Good question.
Yeah, I thought it was.
My apologies. That's not labeled.
I would label it, yeah, to clarify. And then this is one way, I presume, like they're a bit longer than I thought. I thought in Petaluma it was like 3 miles, but maybe that's just intra-city. I'm guessing this is intra and inter.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so this would be one way, and then yeah, the counting both in trips within city and out of the city.
Yeah, I would maybe clarify that. And it's kind of helpful to know too, if there's some way to distinguish in the city, like what percent are like the intra-city versus inter. If this is average out just over the total number of miles and trips, for example, like how much it's skewed by having huge long intercity trips versus a lot of shorter intra-city.
Yeah, I love that suggestion. That's a great one. It's good to compare those.
Yeah, because I remember fun facts from your previous work here, right? Saying that the majority of trips were short trips and that like something like 20 or 25% were long trips. So
Yeah.
if you could show them both on there, like side by side, that would be really interesting to see.
Yeah, I think that's almost more representative. It kind of distorts it a bit when you average them together into this one number.
Yeah, that's great. We'll work on updating that. Then this other one, in terms of travel efficiency, is the daily person hours of delay. And so the map on the left shows those orange and yellow corridors are the ones where you experience the highest hours of delay. These are still based off our 2019 transportation model. We'll be updating that in the coming year, but the other way that we measure it is using just the hours of delay along 101. So a corridor we all experience, and what we found from 2019 to 2023, that there has been about a 9% decrease in hours of delay. So there's moderate, but maybe not noticeable all the time, little quicker movement along just the 101 corridor that we have data for.
The chart's interesting, and I know it's kind of small. I don't know if there's a way to work in any legend to kind of say the magnitude of if the color is determined by percent or what is actually making those determinations.
Yeah, that we could do that. Yes, it's somewhat based off thickness too. So those thicker lines, the orange being the darker ones, yeah, were the highest hours of delay, but we can add a legend to that as well.
Okay.
All right, so to transit use and active transportation, we're looking at the means of transportation to work from the census, bicycle facilities, constructed, transit ridership, and then passengers per revenue hours. So this should be no surprise. It's still a dominant way that we move around is driving alone as our way to get to work. However, there is a noticeable shift that work from home also should be no surprise has increased since the pandemic and having a higher proportion of workers than actually now carpool. Going down a little bit deeper, looking at the means for walking, bus, bicycle, train, and then kind of the miscellaneous category, taxi, motorcycle, etc. There has been a decline overall since 2019 in walking, in bus ridership, and even bicycling, but there is an increase from train ridership as well as that kind of miscellaneous category as well, which might lend to some degree the number of Lyft and Uber perhaps, but maybe also even the kind of more micromobility devices that we're seeing, scooters and such. For bicycle facilities, this is partly educational, showing the difference between which classes of bicycle facilities are considered separated and then which ones are shared with vehicles. So the separated lane miles has actually more than doubled since 2019 from 316 to 684 miles in 2023. And so we see shared use paths, buffered bike lanes, regular bike lanes, and separated bike lanes under that through that increase, but also an increase as well in shared lane with vehicles. So there's class 3 bike routes and then class 3B bike boulevards. Those have increased from 53 miles in 2019 to 158 miles in 2023. And then jumping back to transit use, here we look at the passenger ridership over the years. And again, that obvious dip and then the increase since the pandemic. And again, these are just limited to routes just serving Sonoma County as well. Then kind of combining our previous two measures, the passengers and revenue hours, this in some way is a measure of efficiency in terms of how many passengers can you move, per hour that your vehicles are in operation. And so here we see Smart making quite an increase in terms of ridership and hours since the pandemic. And Santa Rosa City Bus still continuing on as one of the other higher riders or bus riders. So. All right, and last, the equity and environment. We're looking at driving costs. Looking nationally at the AAA driving costs, whether you drive 10,000 miles, 15 or 20,000 miles a year. Those costs per mile have continued to increase from 2019 to 2023. VMT, on the other hand, has had a slight decrease. The 2020 number showed a significant drop as a result of the pandemic, but we think that the 2022 number has, though it has increased to some degree, we're more at a normal rate for that without the impacts from COVID-19. So still an overall decrease since 2018. The VMT per capita and VMT per job have also roughly tracked the same as overall VMT. There hasn't been a noticeable difference between either of those. Also, in terms of the greenhouse gas emissions, this comes from our greenhouse gas inventory. Transportation remains the primary source of our emissions. We see a similar significant decline in 2020, but there's that slight uptick since 2022 that, again, we think is kind of a more normalized emission scenario without the effects of the pandemic. Building emissions come in second from a lot of the natural gas that heat and cook our food. Heat our homes and cook our food. And then at the very top, you can see the water conveyance. This is huge success for water processing since Sonoma Clean Power and Sonoma Water have made huge steps in reducing the overall emissions of water conveyance. Several years ago, we are, appreciating the benefits of that as just one of the sources of our emissions is, down to kind of almost as little as it can get. So with that, maybe we'll open it up to questions or discussion. I know we've already had a lot of good ones, but if there's anything else, I'd be happy to take those as well.
I have one more comment about the transit. I think the riders per revenue hour is fine. I also think, you could look at adding total ridership. As we've been increasing our coordination, that's something we've been talking about, reporting on increase in total ridership for the North Bay or for Sonoma County. That we're not
This
as
should
focused on,
have total ridership, I think.
so that we're not as, we do?
This was the passenger one
Oh,
/
maybe-
ridership.
Okay, I was just looking at revenue hours. Okay. And that stacks everyone on top of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you.
Okay, great.
That's paratransit too. Interesting.
All right, well, thank you for your time. I'll move it on to the next item.
Thanks, Adam.
Still on CTP,
Yeah.
right?
One
All
more.
right. So we've actually been out in the community and been doing some outreach and engagement. So I just wanted to provide a really quick update on kind of what we're hearing so far. And one reason we want to do this is, a lot of times as we're doing outreach and engagement for the CTP, we're collecting these, projects that are feeding into the CTP as well. And, sometimes, our engagement is a little out of sync with, the updates to the project list and getting project list submissions from you all and from the Public Works Department. So we just want to provide a little bit of insight into what we're hearing is important in the community, since we've been doing our outreach as part of this CTP update, but also as past planning efforts as well. So let me go ahead and get this. Here we go. So as part of our last CTP, we actually conducted a survey, and these are the things that we heard when we did this. probably back in 2019, 2021. Our last CTP was not 2019 and 2020. So our last CTP was updated or adopted in 2021. So, these are the things we were hearing about the transportation system in that survey. It takes too much time to get around, right? It harms the environment. Our transportation system needs to be maintained better, costs too much, isn't safe enough, and people were unsure about other options to get around. So as part of this CTP update, one thing we've done is we've taken a look at other planning activities that are going on and other planning documents that have recently been published, including Sonoma Clean Powers, Clean Vehicle Assessment, our other planning documents such as the ATPs, our past community-based transportation plans, MTC's outreach, and many other planning documents, including general plans and stuff like that, and identified other topics that keep coming up over and over again. So, again, things like maintenance, safety, transit was very high on the list. Cost of getting around, how long it takes to get around, walking, biking, and maintenance were all key topics that came up in those planning documents. So, one thing we're very aware of is, when we go out into the community, a lot of times, it feels like we're starting from scratch, and people will tell us, we've told you this over and over again that, safety is important to me, or, I want to take transit and it's difficult for me. So we want to, not be starting from scratch and be building on what people have told us or other people through these other planning processes. So as we're doing our outreach and engagement, we're focusing on these things that people have told us are important. So these are the types of things that we're hearing as part of our live engagement. We've been out at a number of events already. So a lot of these are really focused on transit, including things like people want more frequent transit, longer transit service hours, easier transfers, connections to places like the airports, Santa Rosa Junior College, job facilities. We're hearing a lot about east-west connections, right, as well. So connections to Sonoma and Sebastopol away from the Highway 101 corridor. And people are excited about free transit fares as well. So we have a live survey out on the streets right now. So thank you for those of you that have been helping us advertise this. So, it takes about 5 minutes. It's really focused on transportation priorities and issues that are important to our community. So there's the QR code, and just wanted to summarize what we're kind of hearing so far. So we've received over 160 responses so far. So this is not scientific. It's, basically just a general read of what's important to people right now. The respondent ages are definitely on the older side. So, almost 70% are over 45, 60% are employed, 30% retired, 80% have no children at the home, and 45% telecommute or work from home. So definitely a subset of the overall Sonoma County population has been responding to our survey so far.
Just a quick question, Chris.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Are there plans to try to get a more representative feedback, or is what it is?
So yeah, we're trying to advertise it far and wide. We're actually doing a focus group at the Santa Rosa Junior College this Friday. So hopefully we can reach some more younger respondents. We're also hoping to get the survey link in news, jurisdiction level newsletters and things like that. So we're trying to reach a wider sample, but yeah, Sonoma County is also aging, right? So, so we're definitely capturing that demographic in Sonoma County. But yeah, we really want to try and reach other members of our community. we're working on some videos that we can get up on social media and YouTube like that as well, that it'll include a link to the survey. So hopefully we can reach other parts of the population that way as well, that we haven't been able to reach very well. But yeah, we're making an effort. So yeah,
TikTok video.
what's that?
TikTok video.
We should do that. Yeah, Ross is on Zoom there. So Ross, yeah, I guess we need to do a TikTok video.
It's the young people.
Yeah.
Yeah, find the Sonoma County influencers to.
Yeah.
We need like a 5-second.
That our connect, and we hired an influencer and she made this video. I thought the video was pretty dumb, right? But I mean, it got hundreds of views and
Yeah.
so many comments from people who had never heard of it, right? New audience. So I was like, okay, I guess that's the point of this.
That's a great idea. So we're actually, Ross is working with a production company and also with some of our board members to get some sound bites. So we have a draft video ready right now. So it'd be great if we can kind of, TikTok's like 5 seconds, right?
a dance routine
I have no idea.
Yeah. So,
If it's more than 15 seconds long, they won't pay attention.
okay, so yeah, that's a great idea. We'll try and get something really short we can get up. But yeah, we're excited to be able to do the videos, right? So hopefully maybe at the next T-TAC, we can share the CTP video as well. So
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you, and you might have already reviewed this, forgive me, but demographically, what is the share of senior? It's such a dramatic thing in Marin County. And in their CTP, it's predicted to be like 40% of the population and the CTP is over 65. And
yeah,
I know Marin is unique to the region, but it's a trend in the whole region, but Marin is an outlier. Where does Sonoma fall kind of in the middle, like
we're
Bay Area average or?
we're on the older end.
Yeah.
For sure. And, I think the last statistic I saw by 2030, we're supposed to be over 35%, over 65.
Okay.
Yeah, I think second only to Marin in the
Yeah.
state.
Interesting. Yeah, because I know Marin's at the top.
Mhm.
And the Bay Area average is, it's still like 30 or something, but, oh, interesting. Okay.
Well, and weirdly, in Sonoma County, the smallest group is, I think, between 25 and 45. So the younger population is older than that kind of, that 20-year-old, it's not really middle age from 25 to 45, but that segment is kind of the
Pre-middle age.
smallest. Yeah, and it's predicted to kind of stay the smallest going forward by the state. So, but yeah, we're definitely seeing a huge needs associated with the aging population here as well. So here are just some really high level highlights of what we're hearing so far. So primary transportation priorities are biking and transit. That's good to hear, right? Medium priority, walking and freight. So we've heard a little bit about freight from some folks at some of our events as well. So, specifically moving to rail freight and, moving away from trucks. And then on the lower priority side, driving and longer distance travel on our survey. So looking at local streets and roads, safety is definitely a high priority for everyone. Maintenance is, kind of in the middle. So, almost everyone, it's at least a medium priority, but less than half are citing that as a high priority. And then synchronizing traffic signals, there's kind of a weird split between that being a high and low priority. So not a clear view of what people want there. Looking at walking and biking, again, pedestrian crossings and safety is very high on the list. Expanding bike ped routes and lanes, very high. Pedestrian connections to school, also high. And then overall bike lanes, pretty high as well.
Oh, I had a just commentary on that last slide, Chris, which is as part of Transit 2050 Plus. It was interesting that through the public outreach, we found that maintenance of the system did not rank as high as we expected. And expansion, people were more interested in expansion than maintenance. So
Yeah,
there's kind of some similarity there.
Maintenance isn't fun, right?
Right.
Like-
There's no ribbon cuttings for new pavement.
Exactly.
Should be.
There should be.
Yeah. But it was good to see at least most people thought it was at least a medium priority. So, Okay, so we went through that. On the transit side, so sorry for the small wording here, but this is available in the agenda package as well. But, you know, over 2/3 identified building housing and, you know, job space and commercial space near transit as a high priority. So there's an
That's
interest.
what people want or what it's for other people.
It could include both. So we didn't specifically ask, right?
No.
But, you know, I think there's definitely a tendency to, you know, want other people to do things that.
Yeah, I was wondering, like with like the high aging population, they probably have established homes.
Yeah,
So the question is like, are they willing to move to like an
Yeah.
apartment complex that's next to a transit facility?
Mm.
Or is that like the intention of like, well, you know, I like my bubble, and
that's definitely,
I know you don't get that out of here, but I don't know if that's like something you can get anecdotally out of any sort of.
we can
Four
definitely.
others in the parentheses after this
Yeah.
choice.
We did.
Also like 4 others, but not in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
One neighborhood over.
Yeah. You know,
We
there-
joke, but it's actually a serious issue.
No, it's
Yeah.
true.
And for Golden Gate, the ferry shuttle program, the bus shuttle program always scored very highly in all of the public outreach, but it was always turned out, we wanted other people to take it so we could get our parking spot at the terminal.
Yeah.
And so nobody was actually on the bus. And then we had to cancel the bus service.
I, you know, like tongue in cheek, but like in the grand scheme of like how you take this information.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't, it's a high priority and you're like, okay, well, let's focus on getting those type of developments established. But like kind of David's point, like when the rubber meets the road or the concrete, you know, hits the ground, is the community, you know, okay, we looked and this is where we should build it. And then those same people be like, well, not here.
Yeah.
So like in the advocating for transit, like, you know, there are other hyper priority areas and like, sure, I'm all for TOB and everything, but like. I don't know if you have to like change the culture first before you can like get those things that are literally and metaphorically concrete in the ground as opposed to like transit's a little more malleable, like in a bus route.
Yeah.
It's not so like in your face as like an apartment building. That's more of what I'm getting at.
That's a hard thing to change, right? Where you live, for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Whereas like if you can change the culture of like transit's more useful than as that older generation phases out and there potentially is a younger generation that like there is that more willingness to like, I do want to live in that type of project. I don't know, but you can also say the inverse, like that will attract a younger population to those areas.
And that's a really great point. Maybe something we can try and tease out as part of our outreach is what are the personal actions you are willing to make to change or make a difference?
Yeah, because I'm thinking here, like most of like the advertising we've done for transit to get use is youth. I mean, we have these stickers and things like that, but if the population is so on the higher end of the age spectrum,
Yeah.
you know, maybe our campaign should be in a vein that's more attractive to those groups as opposed to like transit's free for youth. So it's kind of like, you know, they're already making that choice.
Yeah.
But then there is that whole subset of a population that has, you know, it's more of a choice for them to either take transit or not. I know Smart has, you know, free fares for seniors. You guys have your like Grossman Express, that's done well. So, I mean, maybe, you know, City Bus and the other bus operators, I mean, pedaling was free entirely anyways, but I guess so, City Bus, at least in this county, need to look at getting to see if, you know, that is a choice that people want to make from a mode shift of like transit is a useful form of transportation, especially if people move out of, you know, the choice might be made for them that the car is no longer a viable option.
Yeah, for sure.
What share of your riders are over 65, do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. The numbers that we have from NTC are out of whack now because of our youth fare program.
You're right.
Yeah, so I mean, 2/3 of our trips are youth, so it's a huge,
2/3.
Wow.
or third, sorry.
A
Yeah,
third.
yeah, a
Okay.
third of our ridership is youth.
I mean, for Petaluma Transit, 60% of our ridership is K through 16. So it's especially large for us. That's why I think the demographics of who's doing the survey is so important. I think the second one is a very much important one, but I think if it's skewed towards older people doing the survey, and especially looks more prevalent because things like youth transit don't really show up here, but that's like our bread and butter
Yeah.
ridership on Petaluma Transit.
Yeah, and I guess also it's, you know, the demographics that can spend money and have effect more on the local economy.
Yeah.
I mean, youth for transit's great and we have, you know, it's taking car trips off the road. But do those kids then stay in the county once they do reach adulthood, or do they disperse out and then the demographics stay the same?
Yeah.
I mean, those kids, you know, that, but I guess that's the, you know, the building transit near.
I mean, that's
building
true, but
near transit, you know, those kids, if it is affordable, it's attractive and maybe that's a culture they want to experience. That's a little more urban than suburban. Yeah. But my question is like, you know, goes back to that, who is saying high priority? Do you guys have the crosstab on age, or is it just asking?
Good question. We may be able to get that because we do ask age. So I think we probably could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just be curious.
I think that would be really,
Yeah. Who's saying what?
yeah. And then looking at what share of the population that actually is.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Again,
could-
it's so much who's responding to the survey and how much that correlates to how much that's actually representative.
Yeah, maybe you could do a chart that says by like age group and have 3 or 4 in the top priorities, because by each age group, I think there would be huge shifts.
Yeah, especially since this is a future planning document.
Mhm.
Yeah. By the time a lot of this stuff is enacted, you know, if it is a highly, you know, like in that 65 and plus realm,
Yeah.
they're not gonna act on most likely what comes out of the plan. Or they're not gonna be the most beneficial part of it.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here advocating for that small group that I
Yeah.
reside in.
Well, even the congestion, so much of the congestion is peak time and it's related to jobs and schools. So those kind of people on that younger side going to work or going to school or contribute to the worst parts of the congestion too at peak times.
Cool, great discussion. So thank you so much for all that feedback. And this is kind of early in, so once we're further into the CTP, we'll, you know, I think it'd be great if we can kind of cross tab and slice and dice it a little bit more.
A demographic, will there be just like a demographic section of here's what Sonoma County looks like?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, that, you know, we have a big reference section in the plan that includes, you know, demographics now, but also forecasts.
Yeah,
And then we have a whole section on the transportation system, you know, including, you know, transit, bicycle pedestrian facilities, the roadway, so all of that, and also looking out into the future as well.
Yeah.
So,
because I do think the demographics on different modes, like the overlay of mode and and age
yeah,
is interesting. Like I was surprised to learn Marin Transit is almost a fifth of our riders are seniors. And again, that's correlates sort of to the demographics of Marin County and
Yeah.
to our fares and all of that, but it's almost like stated preference things are one thing, and then who's actually moving their feet towards those stated preferences,
sure.
sort of per the,
Yeah,
Who's-
I mean, the
who's voting
second
for
one on there
TOD?
is provide transit service for older adults and disabled.
yeah,
Yeah, the other, like, that question. I would be curious, just like the details of it, because it'd be like paratransit, like,
yeah.
that's my first guess, like, well, we have it, it exists already.
Yeah.
That's the service. If you're unable to use the regular transit service, or is it fall into those next two of expand service coverage?
Yeah,
So that you do eliminate someone who may otherwise need to take a paratransit trip because the bus is closer to their origin and destination.
great. Well, thank you so much for the feedback. You can see there was a lot of interest in transit from this
Yeah,
group.
that's
So a lot of stuff scored very highly in there, which is encouraging. This one was interesting. We asked, would you use transit more if, you know, these were the high responses? Routes were more convenient, right? Free fares, space, feel more safer, comfortable, and driving being more expensive, right? So those came up as the top responses for using transit more.
I mean, one quick thought on that, convenient can mean different things too. Some people want the spaghetti route that goes door to door. And as long as it takes me door to door, that's super convenient for me.
Mhm.
Whereas realistically, you want frequent routes on major corridors, so it's even how you define.
Yeah.
The word convenient always wins, you know, and
Yeah.
it
It
surveys as
sounds
well,
good, yeah.
because it means a lot of different things.
Well, and that's why
Yeah.
we don't use the word convenient
Yeah.
in our passenger
No.
surveys. But I will say that, this is interesting, you'll see that where regional versus local traffic is probably different, because, you know, when we did our passenger survey last year, and actually we did focus like a statistically valid survey of non-riders as well. And free fares didn't even really rank,
Really?
like fares were not an issue for those regional travelers. It was like middle lower on the list of, it was, you know, in the teens or something in terms of percentage. So, but this is kind of consistent with that local demographic tends to be more price sensitive because they're doing day-to-day trips.
Yeah.
So there's a nuance there to consider.
It'll be interesting to know if people who are saying selecting that as a high priority are transit users, right?
Or, yeah.
Right, so I mean, it could be that.
Well, I was
and-
gonna say
and
that
in
like.
theory, they think that that would
It's a
increase
nice idea.
usage, maybe for somebody else.
Yeah,
Right.
like Golden Gate, I don't know, like they're, feel like the more hardcore transit users. So like, for lack of a better term, so it's like they kind of understand like the nature of the beast. Whereas like free kind of sounds good, where they're like thinking like it's a hop on, hop off trolley, like getting around downtown. In like a more suburban context. Or, you know, and think of like smart, you know, like that's attractive for like a recreational trip, but like for a commuter or someone who like does that, I don't think they would, like I said, they're not there.
Yeah,
It's
and I
price
think-
sensitive.
and I
It's
think-
like this is far and away cheaper than any other option for me
Right.
to do anyway, so like.
And that's what I was gonna say is, you know, even with the non-user survey, I think it's because we primarily feed to places like San Francisco, which the alternative is just typically so much more expensive that it's like, fine, take my $10.
Yeah. It's still, you know, $40 cheaper.
Yeah, but if you're just hopping across town in the town of Sonoma, then.
Yeah, free is nice.
Yeah, free is nice because the parking is free, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also we found for seniors, it's the technology, not the money, right? So they would often avoid taking smart because they just couldn't figure Clipper out or the app. But as soon as we made it free, they would guide. So with Golden Gate, if you're taking the bus into the city, probably need to know how to use your Clipper card.
Yeah, technology is definitely a barrier. I mean, I look at the older people in my family and they don't even like to schedule paratransit rides because you have to call and then you have to go through a whole thing. And yeah, it's like a process.
So here's the same question for walking and biking, you know, separation, safety rates really highly there, more infrastructure. E-bikes and bike share was further down the list, and bike storage and showers, but you know, safety rising to the top for sure. We also have a question related to electric vehicles. So, you know, the more popular options there were incentives to purchase vehicles and access to public charging. E-bikes and scooters incentives showed up, 19% popularity as well. And then I would drive less if there are better infrastructure for walking, biking, more frequent transit and extended hours and routes. So that kind of gets into the convenience a little bit more, right? Defines it. Freer to scan on transit, shuttle, trip planning resources, and bike or scooter share. So a few different options there that people selected from. So that's it. This is just an early look. So hopefully we get a lot more responses and hopefully we can cover some more of those missing population demographics that we're not hitting very well now. But yeah, I just wanted to give a quick look on where things are at right now and what we're hearing when we're out.
I do have a question, one more question.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't, for the fear of survey fatigue, but at any point, like, is there any, like, to take like the high priorities and do like a trade-off scenario to like hone in on what people, because it's really like the convenient, like more convenient transit, like you have nothing to lose by saying that, as opposed to like, you know, I prefer, you know, more frequency versus extended hours, or I even taking different modes You know, I would prefer to have a better walk than to take transit or something of
Yeah.
that nature, to really hone in on what are people, like, what desire do they have? As opposed to like shoehorning them into, like, well, we're just going transit, and that's with some, you know, pedestrian facilities, whereas it was like, well, I mean, I would be happy to ride my bike if the, you know, there was paths available or something like that, as opposed to taking transit. Or taking transit as opposed to, that's my preferred mode,
For sure.
if it worked for me.
Yeah, that's a great recommendation. Maybe that's something we can do when we're actually doing in-person engagement is, you know, here's a list of things you can choose from. You can choose 2 or 3, right? Like
Yeah.
kind of capture those trade-offs, and you can't have it all, right?
Yeah,
Right.
so yeah, I mean, when I've fallen into that trap so many times with surveys, and I always have to remind myself, like, make people
Mhm.
Yeah.
make a choice, because if you give it all to them, they're like, yeah, sure, it's great. I love it, give them to me, and then, you know, actually start like creating a plan. You're like, oh, well, everyone wants everything, so what do we do?
Yeah. That's a great idea for our next round too. So I did not mention that the survey is mostly based on the last survey we conducted for the last CTP. We wanted to kind of track how things are changing over time. So, but yeah, I think it's important to capture a lot of that stuff. So the next time we do this, I think that'll be an important thing to, you know, you can't have it all, right?
No.
Like,
Yeah, no infinite funds here,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
great. Well, yeah, thank you so much for all the feedback, and this is in the agenda packet. If you have any questions about the details, let me know. Both Ross and I can dig into the actual detailed results. So go ahead, stop sharing here.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
All right, we have regional funding next, and starting off with a preview of the SCTA funding program, cycle 2. I'm gonna turn it over to David.
Thanks, Dana. So this is the upcoming SCTA funding program cycle 2. We wrapped up cycle 1 a couple of years ago now. It started with a call for projects in summer of 2021 and led to programming of over 75 million in various state, federal, and local funds. We had a process where we had all the local jurisdictions submit their top 5 priority projects to us, and then all the transit operators did the same thing, and then we scored them, and using various scoring criteria and prioritization, we ended up programming a lot of funding, as you can see in the attachments to the staff report. We're getting ready for the next cycle. That cycle will kick off next summer, and then will include over 110 million in funding. This includes, I'm just going to share my screen real quick so you can see the packet. Everyone see my table here?
Yeah.
Okay, so it includes about 20 million from OBAG 4, from MTC, about 16 million in state transportation improvement program funds, about 2 million in others of state local partnership program competitive funds, and then a variety of local funds through Go Sonoma Move Traffic Improve Safety, Go Sonoma Build Bikers and Pathways, and then Grade and Tribal Mitigation Funds. These are available for capital and operating decisions for new service. So we're looking for, again, the top 5 priorities from SMART, and also in the case of the public works side of the house, we're asking all the cities for their top 5 priority projects. We had an issue last cycle where the city of Santa Rosa and the county got a little creative and submitted their top 5 projects, and then they also had sub-projects associated with them. So for Santa Rosa and for Sonoma County Public Infrastructure, we're proposing to increase their limit to 10, and that's in addition to the 5 transit projects from Sonoma County Transit and Santa Rosa City Bus. So there's going to be a variety of funds available over the next essentially 5 years through fiscal year 2030-31, that state fiscal year. And then just to share the schedule, there's a tentative schedule included in your packet, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Can I ask you a question? Sorry. About the grade and mitigation funds? Is that a new thing for SCTA to be administrating? I don't remember that in the past.
So under the old agreement the county had with Graydon that ended last year, we were passed through funds related to the Highway 101 corridor, which is now complete. Those funds are eligible to be used essentially for improvements to arterials and collector roads between Highway 12 and the county line. So about kind of improving paths of travel to the casino. My interpretation is those could be potentially used for transit improvements, but that's something that we need to discuss with the county. We have a new agreement that we are going to be working on with the county to receive about 2 million a year from the new agreement the county has with Green that we're not specifically named in that new agreement, but we're working on an agreement with the county to receive that funding going forward. And again, that would be improvements to kind of interregional arterials and collector roads and Highway 101 and potentially transit service.
Okay. I remember reading in the newspaper, they were giving funding to, maybe it was the cities of Rennet Park and Cotati. Is this separate from that, or is this that same funding?
Correct. The cities have their own agreement with the tribe, and this funding is flowing from the county's agreement with the tribe, and they're passing through some of that to SCTA for transportation purposes.
All right, thank you.
David, I'm guessing the federal funds, that's all projections, right? And very subject to change if there's new priorities, methodology, thinking on the federal side.
Yeah, so we're hopeful that the OBAG programs won't be affected by the new administration coming in. Those are longstanding. The Service Transportation Program and CMAQ programs have been around for decades, so we don't think they're going to go anywhere. The formulas are pretty ingrained in how the country distributes federal revenues for surface transportation, so I don't think that's a big risk there. We did have the change last cycle with OBAG 3, where prior to OBAG 3 for OBAG 1, 2, and federal programs before then, MDC gave us a hard number of this is your target and program up to this amount. And this for OBAG 3 and now for OBAG 4, it's more of this is kind of your soft target of what you can maybe expect, and you have to competitively apply and compete against the whole region for those funds. And in OBAG 3, we actually performed a little better than our projection. So we're hopeful that that 19.8 million amount will be somewhere this coming cycle. But again, all these some numbers in the table are just projections at this point.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. All right, so next item under regional funding is the Caltrans Sustainable Communities Transportation Planning Grant. I just wanted to make sure that everyone's aware that there's a new category under this program, under the strategic partnerships grant portion of this. There's a subcategory of funds for set aside for transit focused planning projects that address multimodal transportation deficiencies. So SCTA's received this grant at least twice, right, for planning funds, and this is kind of a new piece of this grant. So this was discussed at last Transit Finance Working Group meeting. You may have heard about it, but I just wanted to bring it here and make sure that everyone's aware that this is available. Project applications are due January 22nd. And there's a link on the agenda to the program page. Any questions? Okay. Then let's move on to transit integration updates. I'll start off on the kind of local integration side. We've kicked off the phase 2 of the website integration project, which includes updating Sonoma County Transit and Petaluma Transit's websites to be uniform with the new design of Santa Rosa City Bus's website, and then also create a landing page for all three local transit websites. The order in which we're doing this is starting off with Sonoma County Transit, working with the website development team to update their website, and then Petaluma Transit will start working on theirs kind of early 2025, and then we will work as a team with the website developer to do a landing page. At that point, I expect some discussions with this committee and the regional operators as we envision of an interactive map where you can click on a route and then kind of have that go into either some form of interactive trip planning or directly to that agency's website. So we're kind of I've seen some examples where this has worked with multiple agency websites, and I'm looking forward to seeing what we can come up with. So that's it on the kind of local integration side. If anybody wants to add anything on the kind of, well, probably under the next item, we'll do more regional report outs. Any questions on the local transit integration? Okay, let's move on to regional meetings report outs. And I'll just open it up to anybody who has something relevant for the group.
Did anybody talk about Transit 2050 plus last month? I wasn't here, so. We had an in-person workshop on September 26th. And they're developing a revision to the network based on some additional modeling of small transit projects, I guess, as well as the refinement of the buckets of money. Sounds like a lot of it is just related to moving things between phase 1 and phase 2. In the North Bay, there's no real changes since I think we last talked about projects. I think the main outstanding item regional is really there's some debate around the merit of the Redwood City Ferry project. So that's pretty far from Sonoma County. I think that's really it for Transit 2050 plus at the moment. They're doing their rounds to all of the various boards, of course. Anything else?
What's the status of mapping and wayfinding at Santa Rosa? I'd love to hear about that.
It's happening in the near future. It's in the city of Santa Rosa's court and then also not at the same time. So they submitted all their paperwork for permitting and things like that, and it's in the part of review. They are hoping to do an install. Well, initially it was supposed to be the start of Thanksgiving week. I don't know if that will occur. We kind of talked to the other departments for like the encroachment permits and our sign program, like tell them to hustle. Because we want this to happen, and it's not like they're putting like a giant billboard. This is all very much in the context of the environment and within the goals of the city council. So that's where we're at with that. At least the last update I've had.
And how long is it supposed to be up?
6 months.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there's no intention, like when that period ends, to like rip it
take
all
it
down.
down,
It'll
yeah.
stay up, and then the intent is kind of like phase into the pilot portion of the project.
Yeah.
Or if there are very obvious revisions that they need to do based off of the feedback they get from the public, then they'll make those. But there's no intent to just remove it entirely after the project.
And do you know when they're identifying the pilots? Have they already identified the pilots?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Each
Larkspur.
county
There's one in
has-
There's one in
Marin, right?
Larkspur.
Larkspur?
Yeah.
Is that the only other one in the North Bay?
There's not one in Napa. Napa forfeited theirs to Solano County. So they'll do the Fairfield Transit Center and the ferry terminal in Vallejo. But yeah, the 3 North Bay counties, those are the locations.
We're having a field meeting in Larkspur in a few weeks. I think Robert.
Okay.
So,
And the press event will be at the Bart El Cerrito del Norte location on December 12th at 3:30 PM. They have a schedule hold for that.
So, I mean, we may go after even that, because that's just last I heard. And if they're having their grand
Yeah.
thing in December, then we could be even, I don't know, after. 'Cause
Yeah.
the intent was for El Cerrito to go,
Yeah, it was just to be
Before.
slightly before,
yeah,
but not much later.
Yeah.
We're currently reviewing the draft MOU for El Cerrito. I don't know.
It's the same
if we'll have
MOU
something similar
for,
Trans-
it's a broad MOU.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
it'll just
so
be one that applies to everything.
Yeah, that's also the other part of it, is our MOU for the prototype sites, and our legal department, the city, reviews every city department. So trying to get them to focus on that is also a variable in the timeline.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and Hanson Bridget will be wearing like 6 different hats for all of the transit.
yeah,
operations.
that may require us to tap into that aspect of it, but yeah, the staff has reviewed it. It's, very, I don't know,
General. I don't know if
it's,
that's the word, but
there's a lot in there. we feel like it could be simpler, but also we also don't know how to make it simpler.
Yeah. It's also coming from an MPT, so I don't know
Yeah.
how simple it is.
And it's Nelson Nygaard too, so it doesn't actually look, it looks like a planning document if you just like glanced at it, not in like an actual MOU that you would expect MTC. So I don't know if they'll reformat it once they get through that. But essentially, the gist of it is that, different aspects of the project are on the requirement of the agency or potentially a city, depending on where the signage is for like maintenance and that kind of stuff.
mhm. The version they sent out last time though has MTC taking on more responsibility. See that? I think
Was that the October?
Bart's pushing back.
We're just kind of flowing. I'm just,
Yeah.
my priority now is making sure that the city does our part to like say, yes, you can do this whenever it happens to be that they are ready.
Yeah.
I mean, like the biggest thing that's outside of really our footprint for transit is the breadcrumb signage between the smart station and the downtown transit mall. Other than that, everything else was within the confines of the transit mall.
Yeah.
So it's less of a issue because we can kind of control the schedule and shift vehicles. So
Yeah.
there's not any sort of infringement on the public right of way.
But part of it is gonna be wayfinding between Smart and.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's
there's-
not that they're not installing signage.
Yeah, and they're also installing their new prototype bus stop flags at the stops adjacent to the smart station.
Yeah.
So that's the other difference.
Got it.
And then the pilot phases will, in theory, add those flags, however they end up looking to the rest of the system.
Yeah.
Or major quarters of the system. I know that there's a desire from Sonoma County to at least just broadly apply those to all
Yeah.
the stops, even if it's on our own day.
Just to flag that at these GM, our coordinated GM meetings, they have identified doing a tour. Like maybe we do one of the GM meetings at here and do a tour of it once it's all installed. So it sounds like that won't be till 2025, but I was, at some point, once it's installed, just FYI, that I don't know if Rachel's mentioned that, but it is on the actions track.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
To get people out into the field and actually see it.
See what, yeah. So,
Yeah, and the on a related note, the prototype for the regular bus stop QR code signage, we have all of the materials from MTC. Routes 580, 580X are the prototype bus stops for that particular element of the regional mapping and wayfinding project. It's just basically a 9x13 cardboard sheet or whatever with a giant QR code for real-time schedules. I think real-time and scheduled.
Where will it go?
schedules. So it'll be at all of the bus stops for Route 580, 580X between El Cerrito and San Rafael. They wanted to do something that linked to regional hubs and
yeah.
was connected to one of the prototype sites. So that was the route that was picked. they actually sent over this week a really nice installation guide. So I wonder how much staff time they spent on that, but my little hokey drawings in Illustrator definitely don't compare, so.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I was gonna say, that was done. We had mascots last Friday. Did you maybe want to talk about that service plan?
Yeah, just that we continue to move along on mascots. And currently planning on, I think in terms of major milestones, we're transitioning right now from the kind of alternatives development stage into the alternatives evaluation stage of really looking at operational impacts, costs, et cetera. So that'll be the focus for the next couple months, basically moving into December, January. And once there's enough comfort with that, like we've vetted them at an operational level enough to get a basic level of comfort at the general manager level, then we'll be going out to public outreach and probably presenting to boards in early 2025. So the schedule right now is public outreach in like the February timeframe. I think a lot depends on how much comfort we can get on the operational side. We don't want to go to the public with something we think is completely infeasible. So this is basically when we really start vetting things at a feasibility level and see if there's enough comfort with it feasibility wise that we're ready to actually go to the public. So that is basically where we're at with integrating public. I think we'd originally talked about wrapping this up and having recommendations by like February or March. With public outreach, that probably pushes out to more like April, May. And again, a lot depends on these next couple months of the operational feasibility assessment and then what people say in the public. If there's really dramatic pushback on the recommendations and we have to rethink them, then we're probably looking more like June or, next summer. So, but we're keeping the optimism. And then the other thing is we had originally talked about August 2024 being 2025 being the initial implementation, and there still might be some phase 1 changes. And some of them might be actually the local stuff, like realigning some routes to serve Smart better that aren't contingent on a bunch of the other big changes. But it's highly likely that the bigger scale changes are unlikely to go until January 2026. So, yeah, I think those are the main updates. Any other sort of at the high level?
Yeah, a couple quick ones. Pretty much all the agencies are doing the service planning update presentation this month or next. Some have already done it. So keep an eye out in each municipality to see that. And then part of the marketing outreach piece, we're gonna put together the outline of that, even if it's not implemented for several months. But a few pieces we want to have in line before that, such as the finance components, cost estimations of any changes that would potentially be included in there. So when we do the outreach, we can answer those questions that we know we'll have about what does this cost, what are the fiscal impacts on each agency, et cetera.
Yeah.
That's it for me. Yeah.
Great.
So then transfer plan, we have an in-person meeting this Friday. There are no other sites in Marin or Sonoma, well, Napa's never been included, but there's no other sites in the North Bay that are under consideration. I mean, I guess Solano County counts as the North Bay, so technically there's still sites in the North Bay under consideration, but nothing that would be relevant to this group. So I think
aside from SRTC.
Yeah, so San Rafael Transit Center and Marin was it, and then I mean, there's some tangential stuff at Larkspur between Smart and the ferry that sounded like they were covering, but
Why are they covering that?
I don't know. I'm like they felt like they wanted to. I'm not sure.
Hot issue right now. Yeah, got a lot of emails from Andy Mex in my inbox about this.
Even though it's not really.
Well, basically, they were focusing on how can we improve the connections at San Rafael Transit Center. And I had to say, well, the ferry is our primary transfer, right? So then he starts looking at the ferry as well. Yeah, I don't know. We're trying to weigh the value of connections right now as it relates to the overall system.
Yeah.
Right. Golden Gate is making service changes in January, and so we're trying to decide whether we're able to make changes as well or not. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say, you know, kind of the planning horizon is January 2025 for San Rafael Transit Center, as well as El Cerrito del Norte. So I don't think, at least with this group, I don't think there would be anything more to see on the transfer plan in the future, other than we've taken their recommendations under advisement.
That's a good way to put it. Well, that is definitely relevant to mascots. Because even just yesterday, I mean, I say partially because, so we presented to our board yesterday and we got questions about why doesn't Golden Gate run a bus from Larkspur for all the times when the ferry isn't running, that people can connect from Smart to the ferry. And I said, well, you should just make the connection to the 101 at San Rafael Transit Center. And for one, I think there's a lack of familiarity among our board of what the 101 is and what it does. They thought it stops at every bus pad in Marin County. We're like, it's never done that. Not sure why you have that impression. They had the milk run impression. It's like, okay, I don't think the 101's the milk run, but it is I do think it begs this question of like, what's the transfer, especially anyway, there's more discussions to be had, I think, on this issue.
Yeah, but I don't think it'll be in the context of the transfer plan at this point. I feel like my impression, Emily, is after this Friday, we might be, sounds like we might be off in like county connection territory or VTA territory moving forward. So I don't know how involved we'll be in the
Transfer?
future on the transfer plan specifically. Not that our efforts won't continue.
I mean, the transfer plan.
Notwithstanding Annie Metz sticking in.
I appreciate his work.
Yeah.
He's sitting there doing a bunch of unbidden scheduling work for me. The transfer plan is trying to meet its own goals, right? So he has built this elaborate spreadsheet that says, if we do this change, it will improve this connection by X%. He wants to report back, right? That through the transfer plan, he has increased transfer timing at San Rafael by 33%. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He has his own thing,
Yeah.
but that's just one consideration in our entire system planning. So
Right.
it's an interesting conversation,
Yeah.
right?
And
Around
yeah.
sort of values for the system, and it seemed like a good idea to get involved in the transfer plan, and I don't lessons learned from transfer plan maybe don't stick your nose in other agencies' transfer business. I don't know.
You know, it's, yeah, there's, you know, pros and cons to it, but at the same time, this was an operator-led effort to
Yeah,
kind
it
of
is.
say, well, MTC doesn't need to be in our business on this type
Yeah.
of work. And so I always try to give Andy the benefit of the doubt, because
He's great.
I'd rather that than getting
Yeah.
dictated by
Yeah.
MTC that you shall do this, this,
True.
and this.
Yeah.
So.
No, totally. And it's, they hired Jarrett Walker and they're trying to have some like lessons learned for the Bay Area. We'll see what they are. Jarrett Walker wants us to be Switzerland is what he wants. It literally says that in his
Wow.
memo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Need Switzerland's funding, right?
Bad land use. Yeah, I think at our
Or
last,
you
at
mean
our
in
last
terms
meeting,
of being
my
neutral?
point.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, please.
Can go a lot of ways.
I think if, you know, if we have 100 years of land use policy that Switzerland has, then sure.
Top-down governance.
Top-down governance,
Right?
yeah. Anyway, so that was transfer plan.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, we are at 11:30. If anyone wants to stick around and do a round table, I'm happy to do that. And maybe I'll just open that up, and if anybody needs to bolt out, that's fine, but
I have one I have to say,
all right, great.
which is we bought a piece of property and we actually have the keys / dirt. Don't think you get dirt. I mean, you don't get keys to a pile of dirt, but we own a pile of dirt and Nancy's very excited.
Congratulations.
That's not the location. It's a good location for that pile of dirt.
Yeah, unless you're the city of San Rafael, and then it's a bad location for, but, yeah, that's super exciting. So we're actually gonna be doing, now we actually have to build a facility.
Do you have a design at any certain level of 10% or anything? Do you know? Okay.
I think this is.
So we'll be doing
the
a lot
ground
of
floor.
public outreach and engagement and all of that starting, because there's also a workforce
so this grant from the federal government included a workforce development component, a childcare component. And so there's gonna be a lot of work on a lot of different fronts beyond just the transit facility, and a lot of community engagement, and a lot of other stakeholder engagement involved in that, so.
Congrats.
Yeah, we do have a new staff person whose primary job is gonna be this, part of our capital team, because it's a pretty major project, probably bigger than we've ever tackled before on the capital
For
side.
sure. Yeah, it's interesting. The city of Santa Fe suddenly cares so much about an area where they just kind of build self-storage facilities and
Yeah,
whatever else. So.
a hotel or a car lot definitely would benefit the canal district a lot more than a bus. Just in case you're.
Well,
car wash is
it was
really
only ever a hotel on paper, though. That was the thing.
That's true.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, so congratulations.
Yeah.
And just a quick note from Golden Gate, since we're supposed to report out, ridership continues to be up for us. There was a bit of a lull in the early fall for us, so we were, for the month of September, only up 2% on bus over the previous September. But preliminary numbers for October are looking good. It looks like an 8% increase over the previous October. So that's nice, because that would actually be the largest monthly number we've had for quite a while, since 2020 or something.
What was the percentage?
For October, 8% for bus. And then for ferry continues to do well. So September compared to the previous September is up 15%. And then preliminary for October is up 18% compared to the previous October. So the numbers are looking good. And then I guess we have December's meeting, so I can talk about service changes then, but they're pretty minor for us, mostly schedule changes in terms of what Sonoma County would care about.
A couple quick updates for Petaluma. LumaGo is doing well, over 75 boardings per day now on average. Still getting a feel for the trends and all that, but so far so good. It's been really popular. For September, we were plus 12% on fixed route, 18% on paratransit. And then we have a few upcoming outreach events. November 16th, the Saturday's Truckapalooza at Valley Vista Elementary School for all the Petaluma residents who live nearby. And then December 7th, we have Truckapalooza. Buses and other large vehicles for kids to see and crawl around on and all that.
That's awesome.
December 7th, we have a Stuff a Bus event, still determining the details, along with the lighted boat parade. And then the Petaluma Ice Rink, Luma Ice, will be open December 17th to January 7th.
And the Stuff a Bus thing, that's all of us, right? Because Golden Gate's gonna be.
Yeah.
That's the same day, yeah, for every agency doing it. I think they're kind of coordinating it separately on their own, but all on that day.
Okay. Yeah, because I know our bus will be in Petaluma, so I thought maybe it was a little more, but
We're at.
wherever we were last year. That's what I was told.
It's being coordinated. I'm in that meeting.
Okay. There we go. So don't worry.
For SMART, we're doing a ribbon cutting for pathway segment at McGinnis to Smith Ranch Road on the 22nd of November. Making progress. We just posted our strategic plan for comment. You probably all received an e-blast about that. It just learns that the email address in the e-blast is not working. Isn't that cool? So fixing that, but if you have any comments, you can just send them straight to me. You know me, okay? We tested it. It was supposed to forward to me, but it's not working.
Oh, man.
I know. And then we're doing a system closure the weekend of December 13th, Friday the 13th, to do some kind of track switch over for the Petaluma opening. So we'll be closed all weekend. We are going to be doing a lot of public outreach and sharing information about Golden Gate alternatives. And then still planning to do opening of Petaluma North by the end of the year. So like maybe early January.
Did you say that was December 14th, 15th, the closure?
Mhm.
All right.
Yes.
I'll give a quick update on the Redwood Bike Share system. We had a great ribbon cutting event last Wednesday. Thank you to all of you who came. We are still working with the cities of Novato and Santa Rosa to get the final agreements signed, so we could put bikes out there. But you will see in Santa Rosa, there are some hubs, a number of hubs installed. There's a few more that kind of are awaiting details, but hopefully those two cities will come on soon. By our next meeting, I'll have kind of a full month of ridership and usage report outs, but we've been getting little previews of it kind of in the soft launch period. And kind of without doing any advertising or media, it was a decent amount of usage, so it'll be interesting to see once we have a full month.
You did get covered in the IJ. We're in IJ.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look it up because I haven't seen it.
And the PD and the Arts Courier. Yeah,
Yeah, yesterday, right?
there's some great photos in there.
Apparently, I haven't read the news yesterday.
Press
Democrat
and nice.
Great. All right, any other business announcements or comments?
I have one. We're back in the regular transit mall
Oh,
this
sorry, I
Sunday.
skipped
Oh,
you.
great.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah, we muddled through and everything will be back to mostly normal.
It looks great eyeballing it through the fence as well as I could. It looks.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, yeah, there was some hiccups. We had like cracks like for like one day. But they've been fixed. And so apparently the city just has really bad luck with concrete. Because we have the whole Fulton Road snafu. So yeah, we're ready.
That's exciting.
So if we'll have people on First Street the first few days, just trying to like people like sitting out there waiting for buses that are never gonna come to,
Yeah.
point them in the right direction. And we're really upping our signage game to hopefully kind of crack down on the camping that we've been experiencing. And we will have a new, we've contracted with the city parking department who has patrols in the garages, and they're going to patrol the transit mall now during the evenings when we're not there. So it's an extra level of security. We'll see what happens.
Right. Well, thank you all. Thank you.
The quiet gavel.
You get fattier.
I love gavel.
So